$214. That's what's left in your checking account after the car payment clears, not because you had a bad month, because you had a normal one. Your phone buzzes on the nightstand. Marcus posted a video from a rooftop bar downtown, bottle service, a view of the skyline that costs something just to look at. The caption says, "Living." You double tap it without thinking, set the phone face down, and stare at the ceiling for a while. You make $78,000 a year. You are on paper doing fine. You are not, in any way that matters at 11:47 on a Thursday night, doing fine. You've known Marcus since your second year at the company. He works in business development, makes roughly what you make, and operates as though money is a current that flows through him rather than something that runs out. New car every 3 years, leased, always leased. Apartment in the building with the rooftop. Suits that fit the way suits aren't supposed to fit on a sales salary. Marcus is not reckless. He works hard. He closes deals. He just decided, somewhere along the way, that the money should be visible. You don't judge him for it. You used to do the same thing, just quieter. The Audi in your parking spot is $487 a month. You leased it 18 months ago because you had a client meeting and the old Civic felt like a confession. You told yourself it was practical. It wasn't practical. It was $487 a month of wanting to look like someone who didn't have to think about $487 a month. At work, there's a woman named Jean who runs the office procurement. She's been there longer than the building's current carpet. Drives a 2009 Camry with a bumper sticker from a national park she visited in 2011. Brings her lunch in a canvas bag that has seen better decades. One afternoon, you're both waiting for the elevator and you make a comment about the market being unpredictable lately. You're thinking out loud, really, trying to sound like someone who has a reason to care about the market. Jean looks at the floor numbers ticking up and says, almost to herself, "The market's always loud. The account doesn't have to be." You laugh a little. You don't know what to do with it. The elevator opens. You both get in. The conversation moves on. You don't think about it again for 2 years. The first real decision happens on a Sunday in March. You're sitting at your kitchen table with a legal pad and a pen, which is something you've never done before. Written your actual numbers down. Not approximate. Actual. Income after taxes, $4,640 a month. Rent, $1,850. Audi, $487. Insurance, utilities, subscriptions, $340. Credit card minimum on $8,400 balance, $210. Groceries, gas, random spending, $600. What's left? $1,153. You stare at that number for a long time. $1,153. You make $78,000 a year, and you have $1,153 a month that isn't already spoken for. And you've been spending most of that too. You do 2 things that day. You call the dealership and ask what it costs to get out of the Audi lease early. $1,200 penalty. You pay it. You buy a 2017 Civic from a private seller for $9,400 cash, which nearly zeros your savings, and you feel something close to grief doing it. Then you set up an automatic transfer, $400 a month into an index fund. It feels like a demotion. You don't tell Marcus. You don't tell anyone. That Monday, you drive the Civic to work and park it next to Marcus's BMW, and you sit in it for a moment before going inside. It's quiet. Nothing about this looks like progress. That's the part nobody prepares you for. 14 months later, your credit card balance is 0. Not lower. 0. You don't celebrate. There's nothing to celebrate in front of. You just look at the number on a Wednesday night and feel the specific silence of a thing that used to cost you $210 a month no longer costing you anything. You redirect that $210 straight into the account. $610 a month now, leaving automatically before you can reconsider. Marcus gets a new BMW that spring, the trim level above the last one. He mentions the payment once, $630 a month, and then moves on like it's nothing. He's not lying. To him, it is nothing. It just comes from a different direction than yours. You don't say what you're thinking. The account crosses $14,000 on a Tuesday while you're eating lunch at your desk. You glance at it, close the app, finish your sandwich. There's nothing to post. Nobody congratulates you for an index fund. The watch on your wrist is a $23 Casio you bought to replace the one that broke. You meant to get something nicer once things stabilized. You kept forgetting. Then you stopped meaning to. Then the market drops. 19% in 7 weeks. Your $31,000 becomes $25,100 in the span of days that feel much longer than they are. You check the account 6 times on the worst day, 7 the next. The number keeps being smaller, and the news keeps being louder, and every financial headline uses a word like collapse or spiral. Marcus moves his 401k contributions down to the minimum. He tells you at lunch, why keep feeding something that's shrinking? He's not wrong to feel it. You almost feel it too. Gene's voice comes back to you, unbidden, in the parking garage at 7 p.m. on a Tuesday when the account is down $5,900 from where it was 2 months ago. The account doesn't have to be loud. You don't sell. It isn't wisdom. It's closer to the memory of what it cost to build $31,000 out of $1,153 a month, and the specific stubbornness of not wanting to do that again from a lower number. You keep the $610 running. You go home. 9 months later, the account sits at $38,400, higher than before the drop. You do the math twice because it seems wrong. Derek from the drop bought back in at $38,000. He broke even, eventually, but he sold at $25,100 and bought back at $34,000, and the spread between those two numbers is a tuition he paid for a class nobody signed him up for. You don't say that either, you just notice it. 4 years pass after that. No windfall, no stock tip, no inheritance, just $610 leaving on the same day every month, going into the same 3 funds you researched over one long Saturday and never rearranged. Then a raise. $610 becomes $800. Another raise. $800 becomes $1,050. The account crosses $100,000 on a random Friday. You're in the Civic in a grocery store parking lot when you check it. You sit there for a minute. You expected to feel something larger than this. You don't. It just sits there, a number on a screen, and then you go buy pasta. The Civic has 94,000 miles now. Twice someone at work has asked, with genuine concern, if everything's okay. You tell them yes. You don't explain further. Marcus upgrades to an apartment with a second bedroom he uses as a home gym. His lease is $2,400 a month. He mentions it once with the specific tone of someone who has decided that leasing a lifestyle is the same as owning one. You nod. You've stopped needing him to be wrong for you to be right. The watch is still on your wrist. Same Casio. Band replaced once at a gas station for $8. The face has a scratch across the lower corner from a door frame 2 winters ago. You've thought about replacing it. You haven't. Then the month arrives. You do your quarterly check, a habit now, not a chore. And you notice something in the numbers. Last quarter, the portfolio grew by $6,840. Your monthly take-home, $5,100 after taxes and benefits. You read it again. The account, the one that doesn't clock in, doesn't sit in meetings, doesn't answer emails, grew by more in 3 months than you brought home in 1 month of work. You do the math a third time because the second time still didn't feel real. $6,840 in 1 quarter. That's $2,280 a month in growth on average, without you doing a single additional thing, without one more shift, without one more quarter-end push. You sit with that for a long time. This is not income you can spend yet, but it is proof, real, numerical, undeniable proof, that the thing you built quietly in a Civic with a $23 watch while Marcus was upgrading his lease has started working without you. That winter, your coworker Kevin needs to cover a medical bill. $1,800. His insurance is slow. He mentions it once, carefully, the way people mention things they're embarrassed to need. You send it the same afternoon. You don't frame it as a loan. You don't mention it again. He thanks you twice. You tell him once not to worry about it and mean it completely, which is a sentence that would have been impossible to say and mean 4 years ago. Here's what it cost. The years before the legal pad. The years you spent leasing things to look like someone who didn't have to think about leasing things. 31, 33. The years you were performing a version of success that had nothing underneath it. You don't get those back. No account balance buys back the version of you who would have started at 28 instead of 34. You've mostly made your peace with it. On the days it stings, you let it sting and move on. Here's the other cost. The one nobody mentions. When the account crosses $1 million in October, on a Tuesday, the way these things always happen, quietly while you're doing something else, you don't tell anyone. Not because you're hiding it, because you've learned that most people don't want the real answer. They want the answer that confirms what they've already decided about you. And what they've decided is that the guy with the Civic and the $23 watch is probably doing okay. They're not wrong. They just don't know what okay has turned into. It's been 11 years since the legal pad. You're in the same parking lot. The Civic is gone. Sold at 161,000 miles. Replaced by a used Accord you paid for in one transfer without looking at the balance afterward. The Casio is still on your wrist. You replaced the band again last year. The scratched face you kept. Some things don't need to change to stay useful. Marcus is still Marcus. Still leasing. Still posting. Still living loudly in a way that looks, from the outside, exactly like what most people think success is supposed to look like. You genuinely hope he's happy. You stopped needing to compare a long time ago. Jean retired 3 years ago. At her small send-off in the break room, someone asked what she was going to do with her time. She smiled and said she'd figure it out. Nobody in that room knew what she was leaving behind in accounts nobody had thought to ask about. You thought about her sentence in the elevator 11 years ago. The market's always loud. The account doesn't have to be. You understood it halfway the day she said it. You understand it completely now. The wealthiest person in the room is usually the one you'd never guess. If this story made you look differently at what real wealth actually looks like, not what it drives or what it wears, hit like and subscribe for more stories like this one. And I'm curious, is there something you're currently spending money on to look successful that you know honestly isn't making you free? Tell me in the comments.